Hello, and welcome to another episode of Boundless Body Radio. I'm your host, Casey Ruff, and today we're releasing a bonus episode. This is actually two different interviews that I've given recently. The first one is called the UK Carnivore Experience with Stephen Thomas. You may recognize the name Stephen Thomas if you've been listening to our show. We hosted him back on episode 394. In this interview that I give on his podcast, I really share my own journey with carnivore, how I found the carnivore diet, and how I use the carnivore diet to help clients and to help coach people around the world with it. The second interview is on a YouTube channel interview that I gave with Diana Sabina. She was such a wonderful host. I was so honored to be hosted on her YouTube channel. The YouTube channel is called the Diana Sabina Music Channel. You can see just a really interesting progression of the things that she used to post a lot about, which is music tutorials and piano tutorials, to where now she posts a lot of interviews with other carnivores after having to find a carnivore diet to fix her own health and to fix the health of her son as well. So based on the timing of these two interviews, they're a little bit shorter than the normal format that we do here at Boundless Body. So we just figured for convenience sake, we would just put these two together. This will be just longer than an hour, which is a lot closer to our own time format. So as always, be sure to go to these channels, give these people a follow. They're doing wonderful work and they've got a great message to share. And I don't think you'll be upset with following either one of them. Also be sure to leave them a rating and review. And without further ado, check out these two interviews I've given recently on different podcasts.
Hi there, and welcome to another interview. Today I've got the fabulous Casey from Boundless Body. Hi, Casey.
Hello. How are you?
I'm fine, actually. You thought I was going to get the question straight in. Hi there, and welcome to another interview. Today I've got the fabulous Casey from Boundless Body. Hi, Casey.
Hello. How are you?
I'm fine, actually. You thought I was going to get the question straight in, but here we go. So why did you become carnivore?
Oh, well, that's a very big loaded question. So it was actually 16 years ago yesterday that I became a personal trainer. My very first day, which was fantastic. I knew everything there was to know about personal training and nutrition, and it's all been kind of downhill since then. But you know, in my career, I was working primarily on metabolic carts. And so I was measuring people's metabolisms to understand not only how many calories people were burning or how they were burning different calories at different heart rate zones. We were also testing people for their substrate utilization, meaning, were people burning more fat or more carbohydrates during exercise or just during their normal day-to-day life? And over the course of several years and measuring many people's metabolism, thousands over the years, and then also moving on to training other personal trainers how to use those machines and how to interpret the data, we started to notice a lot of patterns. We noticed right off the bat that if people did what we kind of gave them as like the standard, like calorie depleted diet, and we gave them an exercise program on top of that, what would happen eventually is, the program might be successful in the short term, but over time, the effect of the metabolism lowering, we were seeing that objectively. We were measuring that objectively and noticing that. And so when people say that, just counting calories and reducing your calories and increasing your energy output through exercise, when they say that doesn't work, like we can objectively say that was absolutely the case. And so, we learned to recognize it too. Like you could see the female that would walk up the stairs to do one of these assessments, and she was freezing cold, even if it was the middle of summer. The skin might not be ideal, or they might have some hair loss or autoimmune issues, and you could just tell like this human has been dieting or exercising too hard for a really long time. So through the course of that, we understood that diets really weren't working very well. But we also started to understand that when people started to reduce their carbohydrate intake and increase the amount of fat that they were eating, their fat oxidation rates would go up, not only during exercise, but also in their day-to-day lives. And we were able to measure that. And it was really quite wonderful because, for example, if you were an endurance athlete, when you only store just such a very small amount of carbohydrate, and endurance athletes are told they need to eat a high carbohydrate diet and they need to carbo load the day before an event to try to top off again that very small amount of carbohydrates that people can store. They would learn that they would bonk during a half marathon or a marathon. You just run out of energy. So if we can swap that around and help somebody not burn so many of the carbohydrates, but rely on the reserve of fat, which we have tens of thousands or hundreds of thousands of calories of storage for that, endurance athletes would just perform better. They would do their races and they would be able to go much further, much longer. And we were able to do that not only by fixing people's training and make sure that people were not overtraining, but also really very impactfully through nutrition. And again, that was originally through introducing more fat into the diet and starting to reduce the amount of carbohydrates in people's diets. And so over time, I ended up adopting that same thing. And I absolutely noticed the benefit. My stomach would hurt less when I would do my cycling. I didn't have to refuel nearly as much. I could go on longer rides and push pretty good and know that I was burning a lot of fat. And that fat came from my stored body fat. So that was kind of the first step of my journey to eventually becoming carnivore. And then as part of the gym that we were working at, we were, I wouldn't say forced, but the gym offered a weight loss program that was called the 60-day challenge. And it was a 2-month temporary weight loss challenge where somebody signs up. We give them a big packet of a lot of different recipes, ingredients, shopping lists, exercises that they could do. It would come with events that they would do, like every Tuesday would be maybe a step class or kettlebell class or something involved with that. And then at the end of the 60 days, the people that stepped on the scale to get started to measure their not only starting weight, but also their body fat percentage, they would stand on the scale at the end of the 60 days to see what the changes were. And, after doing so many of them, we would run this once a quarter. So for years we did them, and the compliance rate was just atrocious. It was somewhere around 15%. 15% of people, 15% of people would start the contest and even stand on the scale, regardless of whether they were successful or not, to get out of the contest. And so by and large, the program was not successful. It was just people were making tons of meals and all these snacks and meal prepping and going out and shopping for exotic ingredients. I'll never forget the one night one of my clients called me crying in the grocery store because she couldn't find arrowroot powder. And I didn't know what to tell her. I don't use arrowroot powder. I don't know what that is either. I'm sorry. So it was really complicated. And the problem for us was, not only was it frustrating to see people fail, but as personal trainers who worked for that company, we had to continue to sign more people up. A new challenge would start 30 days after the last one ended. And so if you weren't trying to, help your people in the current challenge, you had to recruit new people to do the next one, which again would just fail and fail and fail. So it was a few years ago. This is probably in 2018, where we had somebody sign up for the challenge. They really were just having no fat in their diet. They had about 25, 30 pounds to lose. I heard in a consultation when we started the contest, like, okay, what are you eating? And he was the kind of person that was like waking up in the middle of the night to eat cereal, very, very hungry, really not satiated. And so, I just said, look, man, let's get some fat in your diet. Let's at least kind of mellow that out a little bit and see if we can't get on top of these sugar cravings. And so he went away and came back a few days later and said, hey, I've lost 1.5 pounds already and I feel really good. What is this keto stuff? And I was like, well, that's amazing. Good results so far, for sure. You probably lost a lot of other things besides just fat in that time, but I don't know what this keto thing is. Let's check it out. And so that really sent me down the rabbit hole as far as learning what a ketogenic diet was. This client ended up losing all the weight he needed to lose in this contest. He won. We got a lot of accolades for, helping somebody win this contest. And it was quite successful. And when we finished that contest, my wife and I, who worked for the same company, we were thinking about the next contest that was coming around and how the program we were running was largely unsuccessful. But if we changed the advice and told people to eat more fat and reduce their carbohydrates, all of a sudden, it was successful. It worked for this guy. We started introducing it to other people. It worked for them. So my wife and I just said, why don't we just run our own thing? Why don't we, not tell the company what we're doing? Let's go rogue. Let's find other meal plans that are just higher in fat, have a decent amount of protein, and just have a low amount of carbohydrates. And we had tremendous success over the years running that separate program. Our company didn't know what we were doing. I was running free seminars for our group so we could teach people about the science. We could teach them why, their diets and workout programs had failed in the past and why we were doing something different. And we measured and tracked all of the people that we put through that program over the years. And we learned that it was actually not true. The first guy that did this, that I said he lost not just fat, but other things. We measured everybody's body fat percentage. And when people followed our advice and followed the different meal plans that we were giving them, people were not only losing weight, but they were losing nearly 100% of their weight from fat. And that's over 100 people that we measured over the course of doing this several times. I think it was 6 times that we tracked everybody until the pandemic kind of shut everything down. And it was fantastic. It gave us really great job satisfaction. We always had somebody win the contest. And we kind of got famous for that. And it was through my studies of low carbohydrate and ketogenic diets that I was first introduced to the carnivore diet through Dr. Sean Baker's appearance on the Joe Rogan podcast. And I listened to the podcast. I was listening to a 55-year-old doctor doing just deadlifts and indoor rowing. And all he was doing was eating ribeyes. And he was jacked out of his mind and felt amazing, never eating vegetables. And he also mentioned in the podcast that he didn't really rely on blood work. And we were using blood work with our clients at the time to help kind of assess what was going on. And I just thought the whole concept was so preposterous. I turned it off in the middle of the interview. And it wasn't until like really late last year that I even went back and listened to the rest of the podcast, which is funny because I've been a coach for Dr. Baker on the Rivero site now for about 3 years. So kind of ironic, but it was over time kind of accepting the message that, maybe plants are really not that good for you. Maybe they're not even like neutral. Maybe they could actively be bad for you. And if meat has everything you need and plants don't really have anything that you need and could be harmful, what's the harm? And so it was April of 2019 that I decided to try my first 30 days on a carnivore diet. And I just, coming from a place of already being low carbohydrate, it wasn't that difficult for me to further eliminate things like vegetables or any grains that I had in my diet, which wasn't many, but still enough. And within a week or two, I couldn't believe how much better I felt. I lost 10 pounds of fat that I really didn't think I had laying around. It just kind of evaporated. My brain energy was just so much better. And to feel fully satiated and just not really have a constant nagging of hunger was really amazing. And I would say more so than anything, my brain and my connection and my presence just changed in the course of a few weeks, and really stressful things that would happen that would really bother me and make me really upset and would ruin my day, they just kind of slipped away. And my anxiety that I didn't know that I had, always spinning in my head, worrying about the future, it just quieted down. And that for me has been the absolute most wonderful part about the carnivore diet. And so when my 30-day experiment ended, I didn't really ever go back to eating plants. And I've had varying levels of strictness through my carnivore journey. I would say now I'm fairly strict on carnivore because for me, if nothing else, like I just don't like feeling anxious. It's easy for me to eat a heavy amount of meat and eggs. And I really feel great and optimal when I do that. I have good energy. I can deal with my clients in very long days and go from one to the next without hunger, without any dips in energy or mood. My memory is really good. And I feel better than ever at age 39. And I have no intention of stopping. So that was my long-winded answer to my journey into carnivory. And it's nice to be in a place where I don't feel like I'm ever really going to deviate too much from what I'm currently doing. It's pretty nice.
Well, yeah, but what a fabulous answer. And that's exactly what I wanted to hear. Because when I was kindly invited onto your podcast, I realized our backgrounds are very similar, because I was a high carb advocate as a personal trainer and seeing abysmal results, absolutely abysmal. And since I've been coaching people on carnivore, those results, and I'm not exaggerating, are about 20 times better. So I used to celebrate if someone lost 7 pounds. And now I have people that lose 70 pounds, 140 pounds. I mean, there's no comparison. And what I particularly like is you were doing lots of measurements. You were really taking the data as well. So you factually have proof that eat less, move more was not working, or conversely, that higher fat does. So yeah, I take my hat off to that brilliant, excellent answer. So have you taken this? I know you said about Sean Baker not having the bloods as part of his regime. Are you still doing these tests when you have coaching clients?
I am not. We were part of a very big corporate gym that had the resources to be able to do that. Even I was doing very simple blood tests. So for a while, I was doing finger sticks that would give people lipid panels so we could show them what their cholesterol levels were like. And yeah, it was nice. It was really nice to have that data. It was nice to use the metabolic carts, which we no longer have access to be able to show people exactly what they needed to do to increase their fat burning, if that was their goal, or how to lose extra fat or increase their metabolic rates, if that was their goal. It was nice. It was nice to have that equipment. That said, I find that a lot of the really technical measurements are just really snapshots, and they can give you a nice view of something that's going on in that moment. It's just a little bit harder to try to extrapolate that out to the rest of a day or a week or a year. And also, I noticed that even when we had the data and had things to show people, it wouldn't change the advice. My advice would be about the same anyway. Like, people are eating too many carbohydrates. They're not getting a decent amount of protein and fat. They're told that animal products are bad for them and is going to clog their heart and cause all kinds of different problems. People are being lied to all the time. And so my advice was not changing for people. And so when we lost access to those things as we were unemployed during the pandemic, we started our own company. We don't use those tools anymore. We do have a body fat scale that we use just to help validate that people are losing fat, which is nice. But at the end of the day, I love the way that Sean Baker says it. He says, you know what? My best indication for health and longevity is, how do you feel today? If you feel good today, that is a really good indication you're probably going to feel good tomorrow and the next day and the next day and the next day. And again, when I first heard that concept, I thought it was a little bit nuts, but the longer I do this, the more I think he's really onto something, and I really value that approach. But that said, if somebody has access to blood testing, if they have access to metabolic testing, the more information we have, the better. I'm not going to argue against anybody using any particular method, but I also think it's empowering to know that if you don't have access to those things, you can still be very effective as long as you're following the right advice and not listening to the people out there that are sharing wrong advice, mostly for profit.
Yes. And it's interesting that you were part of a big corporate gym and you had a lot of success. Did that not make them prick up their ears and think, oh, maybe we're onto something here to put us ahead?
No, absolutely no. No, we had 140 locations around the country. And yeah, we're in a unique area for the company because the company only has one gym in my state. So we get largely ignored around here. There's other states that have 20 or 30 different clubs in them. And so they get a lot more attention and press and that kind of thing. And no, I would say by and large, they didn't care. In my own club, people started calling me Keto Casey, and they were like pigeonholing me into low carbohydrate. People knew that's what I did and that's what I was coaching. And, you know, at first I really didn't like that. I wanted to be able to help anybody with their nutritional journey, regardless of whether they were doing low carbohydrate or whether they were vegetarian or vegan. And I'm really grateful that I got the advice early on from my business mentor, who just said, look, you should probably embrace what you're doing. Like, you should just kind of accept that you know more about this than anybody else around here. And people are going to come to you for the right reasons. And I ended up embracing that. And my goal and my passion and drive is similar to yours. I'm never going to know the most about this stuff, but I'm also never going to stop trying. I'm going to continue learning and refining and practicing and learning and continue to be wrong about stuff all the time because I want to continue pushing down that way. I know you share that same passion and drive, and I would call it an obsession. It's really a fun thing to get obsessed about. And at the end of the day, it's my life. It's my livelihood. It's my presence on the planet. It's my ability to help my clients improve their lives and show up for their kids and their grandkids. And when you can shift somebody's entire life for the better, it's so addictive. It's amazing. And it makes me get up out of bed at 5 a.m. every single day without an alarm clock and be so excited for my day. It was so different. Like you mentioned, like when you're training and you're giving people terrible advice and it's not working, and all you can think of is to say, oh, well, you didn't eat enough vegetables. You should have meal planned better. Why didn't you journal about your feelings during mealtime? You just turn around and blame these poor people for not being good enough. So everybody feels like a failure. It sucks. It really sucks. And I did it for years. And to find something different and to see a totally different paradigm shift and all of these happy people getting results, it's incredible.
It is incredible. And it's just so, I mean, I go to sleep every night absolutely satisfied that I've helped someone. I mean, I did a coaching call just before this interview, and she said, your advice was a game changer. And it's just those little things. See, I can see it in your face. You see, people listening on the podcast, you can't see that, Casey's reaction is exactly my reaction when he tells me things. I would say one of the things I am qualified in is phlebotomy, and I would have to say, I keep learning. I love learning. I've been doing this a long time, seen thousands of data points, but only in the last week, it's something I've been working on. I've looked at a couple of panels and we've worked out, or I've worked out, how we can see if someone's fat adapted from their bloods. And also only yesterday, with quite an extensive panel, quite nuanced, which you can't buy, by the way. You'd have to speak to me about what we did. But we looked at somebody that was thinking they had oxalate problems, malabsorption, and the bloods pretty much prove it. And then we submitted it to the labs, and the labs came back and said, yeah, that does show that. So
wow.
I think I love learning. I'm 58. I love learning. This couple of months I'll be 59, and I feel I've learned more on carnivore, and think it's because we're open-minded, actually. Because the big corporate reaction was, yeah, so what? We don't care because we're making money. This is a profitable model. This is what the mainstream want. We don't really care about health. They don't, sadly. I mean, they just care about the bottom line. Whereas I think in carnivore, we want to help people. And that's the main thing. So I normally ask this the other way around, but I just wanted to talk about your past because it's fascinating. So I tend to ask this question first, really, about your meals. So what are you doing? Is it 2 meals a day? Do you fast? What do you do?
So for me personally, I did OMAD for quite a long time. I was doing pretty much exclusively ribeye steaks when I was first starting on carnivore. I was able to find some inexpensive ribeye steaks. And so I was able to pull that off. Otherwise, that would have been cost prohibitive for sure. I did that for a long time. I have since kind of opened up my diet and done different things other than ribeyes. And I did OMAD for quite a long time. I believe that I overdid OMAD, and I think I must have struggled with getting in enough calories in my 1 meal a day, because I was noticing some of the effects that I would notice when I was running metabolic tests on people if they had a lowered metabolic rate. So energy was a little bit low. I was definitely feeling cold in my hands and my feet. Wasn't able to hold on to muscle as well as I wanted to. And through that, I recognized that, okay, I might be having a metabolic lowering effect here. So since understanding that, I would say maybe like a year and a half, I've been doing 2 meals a day. So typically speaking, on a work day when I am not, I don't have a lot of time, I'm really busy, I will, basically just have hard-boiled eggs on hand, and I'll eat somewhere between 6 and 10 hard-boiled eggs, somewhere around noon or 1, or just whenever I have time. And then later on in the day, when I'm done with my work and my clients, I'm also done with my administrative work for the business, I will really just kind of have whatever sounds good to me. So lately that's been some type of red meat, maybe a pound of tri-tip or some sirloin has been really, really good lately. Maybe I'll do ground beef or beef patties or burgers or meatballs. And lately also fried eggs, for whatever reason, have been sounding incredible to me. So not only do I do eggs in the morning, but I've been doing some fried eggs cooked in butter at the end of the day. And I will just eat that until I am fully satiated. So that's been a nice pattern. I don't normally track my food, but one of my clients last summer asked me to track, and that was a time that I was also including more protein. I was doing some whey protein powder. I was doing some Greek yogurt as well as kind of a snack before bedtime. And I calculated that my normal intake was somewhere around 2,500 calories. I was getting north of 200 calories of protein, right around there for the same number of grams of fat in a day, maybe around 150 to 200. And that's about where I am today. And that's worked out really well for me. If it's the weekend and I've got a little bit more time, this last year I got really obsessed with Formula One as well. And so on Saturday mornings, I call them my quali eggs. So as I'm watching qualifying on Formula One on my phone, I will take a big old stick of butter, put it in a frying pan. I'll crack anywhere from 16 to 22 eggs and just stir it around until it gets that nice scrambled, buttery, lovely texture. And I'll just throw that on a plate and eat that as I'm watching quali and F1. So that's what I do on the weekends when I have a little bit more time.
Great answer. Thank you. I think it's one of the interesting things as well that in this space, we talk about under eating. And that's a big factor and a big change. I think, I love talking to you because it brings it all back to me when I was a personal trainer. We'd never talk about under eating. We would always talk about eat less. And you nailed it. I mean, then your metabolic rate just slows down. You feel cold, you feel sluggish, and you feel hungry. So I think it's such a failed paradigm. It's very nice the way you put it into words there. You mentioned protein powder. Is that something that is part of your regime, or is that something?
Great question. It is occasional. I don't do it all the time. I don't love a lot of supplements. If I'm in a period of time when I'm actively trying to build muscle rather than just maintain muscle, I will have more of it, but it's a scoop a day, maybe in some Greek yogurt. So it makes like this chocolatey kind of yogurt mix. I don't do it all the time. In fact, I haven't done it in probably several months. I think when my activity level goes up, I tend to do it more. So in the summertime, when it's warm, I'm riding my bike in between my clients, I'm getting a little bit more activity. I feel like my natural hunger for that kind of comes up, and I will just tend to have that more. And that's just another nice thing about carnivore is that, people talk about intuitive eating and we should be eating intuitively. And if I'm on a standard American diet, I will intuitively eat a sleeve of Oreos and a pint of ice cream, an entire pie. And I'll do that intuitively, right? Like that does not work. But when you reset yourself and you start to go carnivore, you actually, I believe, can eat very intuitively. And if you listen to the signals that your body is telling you, does red meat sound good? Does chicken sound good? Does bacon sound good? Does sausage sound good? If you pay attention to that, even to the point of like organ meats, I would say, not something I always include, but sometimes they sound really good to me. I think that's a great way to eat really intuitively. And so I try not to force anything that I'm not actively craving at the time. So yeah, so protein powder, I don't do consistently, but if I feel the need for it, I will use that from time to time.
And is that whey protein that you tend to use?
It is whey protein. And it's so hard to know the quote unquote quality of the protein. The kind I was getting and using fairly regularly was, I would say, fairly inexpensive from Costco. I never really saw anything that said it was good quality or bad quality. It seemed to work for the purpose that I needed it for. So, what kind people get, I wouldn't be the person to ask, but I felt fine on it. And if I feel like I need to include it or increase it, I will.
And that moves me nicely onto training, because you mentioned your bike. So what is your weekly training regime? What do you do?
Yeah, so if walking is my favorite activity, and I'm really grateful for the pandemic in that way, to increase, walking. When everybody felt like they were locked in, we felt around here that we were free to go on walks and spend lots of time outside, which is wonderful. So I try to get anywhere from 10 to 20,000 steps a day as far as walking goes. I will play ice hockey once a week on Wednesday mornings. So I did that this morning, which is great. I do cycle around in the summertime when it's warm in between clients. So that could be a ride of 5 miles, or it could be a ride of 20 miles. If it's a weekend and I have more time, I'll go out and ride 2 or 3 hours. That's just for fun. And I keep my heart rate low. So I know that's a really fat burning type of activity for me. Other than that, I really very much prioritize resistance training, and I will do strength training. If that's going to my community center and lifting weights on machines, I'll do that. If that is taking my TRX out to the lake by my house and hooking it up to a tree or a set of monkey bars, that's great. Recently, I've been playing more with thicker resistance bands, similar to what you might find on an X3 bar or a Harambe system. And I have very much enjoyed using resistance bands as the resistance is progressive. When you're pulling a heavy band, it's actually getting heavier the more you're pulling it. And so it's working with you and getting lighter as you're deloading it to keep a really constant tension in the muscle fiber. And I've found that I can maintain and build muscle quite easily and not have to do that very frequently. And I've really enjoyed that. So I might do some deadlifts or some rows or some chest presses, a lot of compound lifts, shoulder presses, lat pull downs, maybe some squats or lunges. And, I do that for maybe an hour a week, just whenever I have time and when it sounds good. But generally I try to stay active and try to stay outside as much as possible. So that's pretty much my training routine with my clients. And the way that I train them, we'll use whatever equipment they have, but I will put a very high priority on resistance training and using whatever equipment they have. We try to get them to progressive resistance where they're getting near failure on every set so that they can get stronger or build muscle the way that they like. I just think it's so important as we age to really focus on muscle and make that a high priority.
So when it comes to clients, do you try, if they've come to you for personal training, do you also talk about nutrition?
Whoever is open to talking about nutrition, absolutely. I have one client who told me early on that he was He was good with his nutrition. He was doing a plant-based diet, and he didn't want to hear anything about nutrition. I gave him my opinion one time and I let it lie. And I told him, like, look, you can listen or not, and that's fine. I'm just going to tell you this. If you ever have questions, let me know. I'm a resource for you. And you know what? We're doing training once a week, and he's not seeing great results. He's kind of going a little bit backwards. He's adding body fat. Over time, even though we're training, his energy is not great. He's on medications. He's in his 30s. To be on a statin and a hypertensive medication already on your 30s is, I mean, that sucks. That's not ideal. I wouldn't want that. And to have the knowledge and understanding that I do, that, like, man, if you were working with the right practitioner and you were getting the right advice, we could deep prescribe you some of this stuff that has a lot of side effects. He's not open to it, so we don't talk about it. But my other clients, if they're open to it, then yes, absolutely. We are talking nutrition. I'm counting to 12 for them and designing their programs. But also, as you know, as a trainer, there's lots of time to talk about how their life is going, what things they could do better, what things they're really proud of. And nutrition is definitely one of those. So anybody who's open to that, we'll definitely talk to them about it. And if nothing else, just sharing the message that if nothing else, add some protein, get a little bit more animal protein in your diet. If you're eating a mixed diet, fine, we can address that over time, but people are just so far under the amount of protein that they're eating that I try to make that the priority with everyone, regardless of how open they are to a carnivore diet.
Now, a big question. Sorry to keep asking you big questions. What about fasting? What are your views on fasting?
Great question. These are big questions. I love them. I found that you really have to be very clear about what somebody means when they say fasting. For me, fasting is not eating, and maybe, again, it's kind of semantics of what you call it. If it's time restricted eating or fasting, I kind of think of time restricted eating as anything inside of about 24 hours, and fasting maybe is something that's more than 24 hours. Generally speaking, I think for most people, anything that's time restricted in a 24-hour period seems to be very easy and very safe, and most people can do that. I think that when you are eating the proper diet and you're eating a lot of protein and fat, fasting or time restricted eating, there's just not a question. Like right now, I have not eaten any calories in, what time is it? I haven't eaten anything in 16 hours. I played ice hockey this morning. There wasn't very many people that showed up, which means I had to skate really hard and really fast and didn't get a lot of breaks. And I've already seen clients this morning. I'm doing this interview now, and I've had a busy day, and I've had a very active day that started at 4:30. And I'm not hungry. I don't feel that hungry. I'm not interested in food. It's really interesting when you get to a place of true satiety by eating a carnivore diet. It's not a forced thing to not eat tons of meals. It's just like you're not hungry, so you just go about your day. And when you feel hungry, you should eat. And that's typically what I recommend for my people. I've had a few people try extended fasting, and I have to say they've experienced amazing success when they did it. It was really cool to have a client who was doing weekday fast. So he had lots of fat to lose. He needed to lose weight. So he would stop eating on Sunday, and he wouldn't eat again until Friday night. So he would go 5 or 6 days without any food. And we had sessions on Tuesday morning and Friday mornings. So I saw him literally the end of his fast. And I recall that Tuesdays he would be hungry. It would be the more difficult day for him. Not eating for 36 hours was kind of the window that he was really hungry at. When I saw him on Fridays, he was not hungry and he was feeling amazing. And he would do PRs on things like deadlifts. It was really remarkable. And even being bought into fasting as much as I was at the time, it was really cool to firsthand witness what somebody could do in the fasted state. And it was amazing. He lost lots of weight, and he's since given it up and has struggled a little bit with his health, but it was cool to see. And so I think it's more challenging to go multi-days. So if you do work with somebody who knows what they're talking about when it comes to long fasting, but I recommend anything under 24 hours, I think is just totally fine. And I ask my clients to really pay attention to their hunger cues. And if they feel hungry, they can decide whether they want to eat or whether they want to push it out a little bit more. It also depends on somebody's goals. So if somebody has lots of fat and they want to get rid of the fat, I think they're more okay with doing fasting fasting. If somebody's trying to gain muscle or we're concerned about their metabolic rate being a little bit reduced, that's when we say fasting maybe not the best tool for them. We want to try to get more doses of protein in during the day, and having more meals would be a good way to do that. So it really depends on the person, but in general, I think it's totally safe. And for fat loss, from what I've seen, until something can change my mind, I think that is the pinnacle and the gold standard of what can work for most people for fat loss.
No, I agree 100%. You said something there that's, we won't talk about that particular client, but in general, do you find that a small percentage of people get to the goal they want to be at and then give up doing all the right things and fall back? Because you mentioned that one client there, they stopped and then the health started to go south again.
Great question. It really just depends. That's a really great question. It really, to me, comes back to how sick are people of being sick. If somebody is just carrying an extra 10 or 15 pounds, look, carbohydrates and processed foods, they taste amazing. They are really, really, really good. That's how good they are. If people are willing to not feel optimal because this food that's out there in the food system tastes that great. For me, I'm not willing to trade in my personal life. I am not willing to trade a really, really amazing good taste for, 20 seconds of desire for feeling terrible and feeling anxious. That's enough motivation for me to stay on the strict side of carnivore. So it really just depends on somebody's motivation. For this person in particular, he was doing great, going on really great, getting really great results. He went on a vacation. He relaxed during the vacation and he never recovered. He reacquired the taste for sweet things and for processed foods and for things like bread. He has, to this day, has not recovered that and has gone downhill, and it sucks. It's hard. And now to be able to do what he did again, it's going to be tougher. So, it depends on the person, but the people that succeed and succeed long term, they know what it's like to go off the diet. They don't feel right. They don't feel well. People don't come to carnivore just for the hell of it. They thought it sounded fun. Like, they came because they suffered. They tried to follow advice and it didn't work. And their skin sucks, or their gut has problems, or their mind is not clear, or it could be even more serious things like cancer or really heavy mental disorders like bipolar. And those people, it's not really a question for them if they're going to stay strict and stay on it. They're going to, because if they don't, they really suffer. And so, yeah, it's tough. And I see both ways all the time. And I wish more people would at least try it. And I do wish more people would stick with it, because the people that do, they thrive. They really do. It's really quite amazing.
Yeah. So when did you set up your business then? What made that decision?
We set up in July of 2020, not the most ideal time to start a business. But for us, my wife and I, again, working for the same company, it was really a practical thing. As you know, as a personal trainer, you're 100% commission. We were making 100% commission. And the situation that we had before the pandemic was really good with this company, because it was a very high-end facility. We had access to lots of equipment and some of the things we talked about earlier. We had great machines, and the facility was nice. And then again, to do metabolic testing on people was really great. And we were well respected. We had a good career. We had a lot of following, and we had a lot of people coming into the gym. And the pandemic just totally turned that on its side. All of a sudden, our clients were not going to that gym. They were staying home. They had acquired new habits and learned that they actually liked working out at home better with a few bands or some weights that they had, or maybe some kettlebells. And they didn't need to get all dressed up and gussied up to go to the gym like they used to. People were not driving to the business complex where that gym was, because they were working from home at the time. And so for us, it was really a necessity thing. We still had our same people and they needed workouts during the pandemic, but the only way that we could see moving forward was to start our own business. And so we're not entrepreneurs. We didn't think of ourselves in that way, but through a lot of blood, sweat, and tears, we started the company, and we learned how to grow and how to do marketing and how to do accounting. And we learned how to do the podcast, which we do now. And it's been a really fun journey, and I would definitely never go back. But yeah, it was the I guess the necessity of the situation that made us say, like, wow, I guess we're now entrepreneurs and we're going to start our own business. And here we go. And we did it. And we've been doing it now for almost 3 years. It's been wonderful.
Well done. I'm really impressed. And we had a parallel existence, I think, because that's exactly what was happening with me. I used to do rehab as well, because I have a lot of rehabilitation qualifications, and 90% of my income went completely gone.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah, just because of the restrictions, which I'm not going to get into anyway. Right. So that was brilliant. So I tend to do short, sharp interviews, but I think because we've just mentioned that, I rarely do this, but if you want to tell me about the places people can find you, it will be in the description. It will be on the screen, but if you just want to give me a quick run through the ways people can see you, meet you, talk to you, listen to you, it would be great.
Yeah, of course. Well, thank you so much, Stephen. This has been a really fun conversation. I always enjoy talking to you. And I agree. We have very similar paths and have had similar challenges. And I can speak for myself, and I think you would agree with some of the challenges that we faced. Trying to do what we do on a standard American diet would be nearly impossible. To do it on a carnivore diet and to feel so much energy and drive and passion really is the only way we could keep this thing going. So it's been a wonderful journey. The easiest place is just one place, which is our website, which is myboundlessbody.com. From there, they can find the podcast, they can find our social medias, and they can follow us there if they like. The biggest thing I want people to know is one of the first things you'll see on the website is a book now button, and that will take you to a page to be able to set up a complimentary 30-minute call. We offer that for anybody around the world, and I have people all the time that take us up on that. Just the other day, I talked to 2 people in your neighborhood in England and 1 person in Australia, which was really fun, and that is free, and we offer that to anybody, and we can talk about anything, whether it's fitness or nutrition or carnivore diets. We could talk about other lifestyle factors like stress and sleep. Oftentimes, people have questions, but they also already have a good idea of a plan of what they want to do. They really just need validation. They just want somebody to say, you know what, I've got experience doing this. I think what you're doing is going to work great. Go ahead and do it. And I think that can help a lot of people. So again, to be able to find us, that is myboundlessbody.com.
Thank you so much for listening to my podcast. I hope you enjoyed it. Your support means the absolute world to me. And if you're enjoying this show, I've got a small favour to ask you. I'd be incredibly grateful if you would consider becoming a supporter and make a small monthly donation. Your contribution will really help to improve the show. I'll be able to improve the software, maybe put a few more episodes out, and do many things that I'm hoping to do in the future. Do them a lot quicker. So, it's a small monthly contribution. You can cancel at any time, and the link is in the show notes. Thanks very much for listening.
So that was my appearance on the UK Carnivore Experience. And now coming up is my appearance on the YouTube channel with Diana Sabina on her channel called the Diana Sabina Music.
I am so excited to welcome Casey Ruff. Hello, Casey.
Hello, Diana. So great to meet you.
Thanks. Casey, can you please introduce yourself to the audience?
Yeah, of course. So my name's Casey Ruff. I have been a personal trainer for 16 years this month, actually. I've been a nutrition coach for several years. My primary work in my career was back with a big corporate gym that I used to work for before the pandemic. And I was managing a metabolic testing program where we would measure people's breathing to understand how they were burning their calories, both while they were resting and while they were exercising. So I got to understand human metabolism that way, which was really amazing process and kind of led me to where I am today with the things I do with nutrition coaching and strength training. But I lost that job during the pandemic. My wife also worked for the same company and we were put on unemployment. And when we got called back from unemployment, we just didn't have really any clients because of the pandemic. And being a trainer is 100% commission. So if you don't have clients, you don't make any money. And so we decided to start our company called Boundless Body in July of 2020. We also started our podcast in 2020, and that is called Boundless Body Radio. And we get to talk to different people all over the world about some of the things that really make us really excited about nutrition and exercise. And so, yeah, that's what we do. And that's a little bit about myself.
That sounds great. That sounds a lot of fun. Do you?
It's I always say, I've always said this and I continue to say it. If you gave me $10 million today and would guarantee that I would be financially secure for the rest of my life, I would still do what I'm doing. I would still show up for my clients at 6 a.m. on Monday morning. I absolutely just love what I'm able to do and the information I'm able to share with people. It's really a blessing to be able to be in the health space. I really, really love it.
I believe you right away because that shows all your happiness, all your interest goes into this podcast. And I am a listener of your podcast, and it's just amazing. Thank you so
Wow.
much that you take all your informations out to the world. I'm sure a lot of people have also, thanks to you, a lot of progress in their
Wow.
life.
Well, thank you very much for the kind words. It means everything to be able to get a message out to help people. I had lots of help when I was getting started, and I'm so grateful for the people that I learned from. And I think you understand, as we were talking a little bit offline, like to be able to share a message, it's not that easy. I'm a very shy, introverted person myself, and it's really difficult to listen to some of my episodes and listen to myself. But when you understand, it's just like you, when you understand that there is a message that can be told that will really help people, it really creates this kind of passion that it really doesn't matter. Like whatever I think about myself or my voice, the message is more important. And so I really have so much respect for people like you who are doing the same thing. Like you're putting a message out there and it helps people. And so I really have a lot of respect for that. So it's an honor to be here, an honor to be chatting with you today.
Thanks. Casey, you show people how to do strength training effectively and efficiently. What is it that makes you unique?
That is a really good question. So strength training, I believe, is just one of the very best things that any of us can do. I think we should all be putting a very high priority on the amount of muscle that we're adding to our body for many reasons. You don't have to be a bodybuilder. And most people think if they lift weights, they're going to get really big and bulky. And that just doesn't happen. Strength training is so beneficial for so many different things. And we really, especially as we age, we really want to protect our muscle tissue. So when I first started in my career and I first started with my certification, the style of training that I did would be, really hard workouts, or people like jumping around or jumping off of boxes or swinging things, really dynamic stuff. And I think all of that is fine, but I also think that when you're doing workouts that are very difficult all the time, I think it puts you at a risk of injury. And I don't think that getting injured is a really great thing. It can put people on the couch for way too long, and they can waste their muscles and really go backwards, add a lot of fat. And so I really have a high priority on preventing injury. And so the style of training that I train most of my people with is something called high intensity training. It's different than what most people think of high intensity interval training, or HIIT. This is called HIT, high intensity training. And really what it is doing strength training where you're moving a weight very, very slowly. So there's no real risk of injury, but you do have a certain intensity where you're really challenging the muscles to kind of like you're taking your body to like a really deep level of fatigue where people feel like they might get a little shaky, or they might get worried that they might not finish their rep. And what that does is it sends a signal to your body that whatever level of strength you have, it's below what you are trying to get it to do. And if you can do that, you'll actually teach your body by sending that signal that your body needs to become stronger. It needs to add muscle mass. It needs to increase its bone density, and it needs to increase things like connective tissue, like ligaments and tendons. And by doing that kind of training, you can effectively exhaust the muscles and send that signal to your body in a way that you're not really risking any injury. So I think a lot of people could really benefit from doing more of that style of training, just taking a weight really safely, whatever you're comfortable with, whether it's a machine, whether it's free weights like dumbbells or barbells, or even a simple resistance band, and just moving it really, really slowly, doing different movements like a chest press or like a row or like a deadlift or a squat, just really simple things. As long as you're challenging your muscle tissue, you'll send that signal and you can get really, really great results. And you asked about efficiency, and I totally agree. If you're training that kind of way, you don't necessarily need to do it all the time. You don't need to have a heavy volume. You can do that once or twice a week for, maybe 20 or 30 minutes each, and be very effective with your time. And so I love helping people understand that, and again, understand why strength training is so beneficial for so many different reasons.
Oh, that sounds like a good recipe for me, because I don't have a lot of time. So two times 30 minutes, even for a mom, would be possible.
Yeah, exactly. That's great for people that are busy. Like really, like if you had nothing else to do, and you had, even if you only had 15 minutes one time per week, doing a workout like that, where you're just pulling a weight really, really slow, but you're getting to this point of like really deep muscular fatigue and you can't pull the weight any further, that's all you need. That it's all about sending that signal. You can be extremely time effective by doing that. And really, like, a cheap resistance band, a very inexpensive resistance band could be all you need. And so, yeah, for people who are busy and don't want to spend hours in the gym or don't even have time to, they've got families, they've got other things they need to take care of and work. It's fantastic. It is the best thing I could give somebody in the least amount of time that would give them maximum benefit, for sure. So yeah, it should be really great news for people like you and other people, around the world who are very busy and don't have the time to add, several hours to something new.
You have a studio, as I saw while I was researching you. And for all these people who are too far away from this studio, do you also do online coaching?
Yes. Yeah, we do. We were lucky. We were lucky in the pandemic that we had enough savings acquired that we were able to build out our basement to be that studio that you saw. So people can come here to us to work with us in person. But yeah, if you were to ask me that same question 3 years ago, I would say, no, I don't think virtual workouts would work out very well. They would be very challenging. And you know what? I have completely changed my mind. I think it's a really effective way to work with people. We work with people all over the world, where if I can watch them and watch their form and give them different exercises to do, we can really effectively coach people. In fact, just the workout that I did right before this one was with somebody. They even live in my valley, but they live like 45 minutes away, and I don't have time to drive both directions. And so we set up a Zoom call every Sunday. I have a specific workout that we were doing, and I was able to take my client and his 2 sons through this workout through Zoom, like really easy virtual sessions. They got a great workout. They didn't have to leave home. I didn't have to leave home. I didn't have to drive for an hour and a half. And so, yeah, we're lucky in this day and age that we can be really creative with people and help them find different solutions to get really good results. So yeah, we work with people all over the world.
That's fun. That's fun. And I assume that you also practice what you preach.
We try our best that we can to do the things that we recommend to our clients. I am of the opinion that a personal trainer shouldn't give you a workout or an exercise or nutrition recommendations if they are not themselves following the recommendation. I mean, I don't know, like, would you buy a car from somebody that drove like a really beat up, nasty 30-year-old car? Like, I don't know, probably not. You probably wouldn't hire a mechanic if their car was broken all the time. Like, and I think the same way with us in the health and fitness industry. I think it's our responsibility to make sure that we are taking care of ourselves in the same way that we recommend to people. Otherwise, I don't feel like it's a very genuine kind of a thing. And so, yeah, I would try to do all the things we talk about. We'd have a healthy diet. We try to exercise and lift weights. I try to get outside and get sunshine and go on walks and get my steps in. And so all of the things that we like to tell people, I also need to make sure that I'm doing for myself. And plus, as you understand, like, when you're doing things that are healthy, you're happy, you feel good. Like, it's its own reward. Like, talking with your son and talking about like going up in the mountains, like that's fantastic. If you have the health and ability to do those things, you get to go enjoy yourself and enjoy nature, enjoy the things around you that you love. And that's part of the reason why we chose the name Boundless Body for our company. Is we just feel like when you're living healthily, you shouldn't be bound up by anything that's limiting you. You should have boundless options of things you can do. So I do think it's important for all of us in the health industry. I think it's our responsibility to make sure that we're living healthy as well.
Yeah. Why is Pilates the perfect complement to strength training?
Another great question. This is something that my wife does. She is fabulous with helping people with Pilates. She is comprehensive certified in Pilates, and so she is able to take people through different workouts. Pilates is really, as you said, I think a great complement to strength training, because it's almost like if you took resistance training and you took yoga and you smash them together, I think what you would get is something very similar to Pilates. You are challenging your muscles. The resistance is based on springs. And so even as you're doing something like pushing something or pulling the straps with your arms, the resistance is getting more and more challenging as you're pushing something away from you. I think it's a great combination of, strength training, but also not just flexibility, but what I would call mobility, the ability to move and move well. I think it's fantastic for that. And, a lot of people don't have access to the equipment that they need, or, sometimes it can be a challenge to find somebody who is certified in Pilates. But I absolutely recommend that most people go out and see if there's somebody available local to you. I think you can do some things with YouTube, and I think you can do some things like virtually. My wife was offering virtual classes during the pandemic when she couldn't see people one-on-one. But I do think it is a really amazing thing to try to do in person with the right equipment, with somebody who's very certified, because they can teach you a lot about good, proper movement and help you understand how you can use Pilates to, again, exactly the way you said, complement whatever program you're already on. I think it's a great way to be able to do that.
Yeah. I also heard that you are you do nutrition coaching sessions to show people how to burn fat without being hungry. How does that work?
How does that work? That was the question that was vexing me for most of my career. As a personal trainer, you already have like a baseline knowledge of what people should be eating. So as I was starting in 2007, we already knew that people should be eating lots of vegetables, lots of fruits, lots of whole grains. They should be avoiding fat. If they did have fat, it shouldn't be saturated fat. So definitely helping people take butter out of their diet, definitely helping people take red meat out of their diet and fatty meat out of their diet, reduce their salt. And, the more I did that advice and I shared that with my clients, I found that it just simply wasn't working. People, first of all, couldn't do it. And if they could do it, it wouldn't produce the result that they thought it should. And so when I became a nutrition coach about 6 years ago, it's like you would give people that advice, and then people would fail the advice. They weren't able to do what we were telling them. So then it was really easy for me to say, oh, well, you did this wrong, or you didn't have enough vegetables, or you didn't prepare your food ahead of time. You should have spent 5 hours on Sunday shopping for your food, preparing meals, putting them in containers, eating them when you said you were going to eat them. It was really easy to just blame all of our clients and say, look, this is your fault because we gave you really good advice and you couldn't do it. And, it's very frustrating. It's very, very frustrating when we are paid as personal trainers to help get people really good results and nobody gets good results. Everybody fails all the time. We were failing. I wasn't eating as many vegetables as I needed to. And I had anxiety and I worried about the future all the time. And, there would be times when I had gas and my stomach would hurt, or I always needed snacks. And it sucks. It sucks to have a career doing something where you think you should be helping people, but really all you're doing is giving people really bad advice and then blaming them for not following that advice. So we started doing weight loss contests at the gym I was working at, and, people were not very successful with it. I hated doing them because we always were forced to find new people, because we would give people a big packet of recipes and all of the grains and vegetables they could shop for at the store. And the success rate of doing that was very, very low. And it wasn't until just a few years ago when we were doing the contest with somebody who was eating a very high carbohydrate diet. And they, we told them, look, you're probably not eating enough fat. Let's at least get enough fat in your diet to kind of help out, because you're very hungry all the time. You're just so hungry, you're eating carbohydrates and snacks. And he started eating fat, and then he started to learn about keto and ketogenic diets, and he started asking me about them, and I didn't know that much about them. And all of a sudden, this guy gets amazing results. I try it and get amazing results. My wife tries it and gets amazing results. We start giving it to people, our clients. They get amazing results. We continue doing these weight loss contests with people, and we would tell them, throw this packet. I'm going to give you 150 pages, 125 pages of recipes and meal planning and all this stuff. Throw it away. Throw it in the trash. Let's do something different. Let's try low carbohydrate. Let's see if we can get carbs out of your diet or greatly reduced, whatever you can tolerate. Let's give you new meal plans that focus on proteins and fats, and let's see how we do. And it was incredible. People were losing weight, but they were losing fat. We had special scales that would measure the body composition, how much muscle, how much water, how much fat do you have? And people would lose fat. Almost 100% of the weight that they would lose as we were tracking this over the years would come from fat. It was remarkable, to contrast something that never really worked for anybody with something that was working across the board for everybody was wonderful. And the best part, I'm so glad you brought this up, is they did it without hunger. They weren't hungry. It was magical. And I think it was Gary Taubes who had this example that I heard that I think is a wonderful example. If I told you that I had a huge banquet prepared for you, bring your family and come really hungry because I'm going to have all you can eat food. It's going to be absolutely delicious. You're going to love it, but be really hungry. I want to make sure that you can enjoy all the foods that you want to enjoy when you come to this banquet. Most people would think, okay, if I want to be really hungry, I am going to eat less. And maybe I'll have a few workouts. Maybe I'll go running around my neighborhood for 30 minutes or an hour so that I use up a bunch of energy so that I get really hungry. That's exactly the advice that we give everybody. We tell people you need to eat less food. You need to go work out more. You need to burn more calories. That makes people very, very hungry. And that's the problem of why every diet doesn't work out. It's the reason why when I would measure using very specific and scientific equipment, how many calories somebody would burn. If you did a diet, you would burn less calories. Your body would learn how to live on less calories. It would become more efficient. It would reduce your body temperature. It would reduce your energy. You would feel cold and moody and hungry and have cravings like crazy. And so you'd start a workout program, you'd lose some weight for a little while, but then it would plateau. And now you've taught your body to burn less calories. And now you're starving. You're so hungry all the time that now you're going to eat a lot, but you don't burn as many calories as you used to. So you're going to go through a pattern of weight regain. You're going to gain so much weight, all the weight that you lost and then some when you start eating normally again. And unfortunately, again, what we're used to doing in the health space is telling people, oh, wow, you suck at willpower. You should have more inner strength and more willpower. And we told you to eat 1,200 calories. So now eat less. And now work out harder. It's your fault. You're not doing it right. Your system is broken. You have bad metabolism. It's so terrible. And so when I found this other way, like when you teach the body to burn fat as your fuel source, the body is able to not only burn the fat that you eat, like the butter that we told everybody not to eat for so long, but also the fat that you already have no hunger. You're not very hungry. So now people can fast very easily. They can eat 1 or 2 meals a day very easily. They never feel hungry. They don't feel cravings. And then they can succeed and feel so much better about themselves. And so over the years of coaching, first low carbohydrate and now primarily coaching people with the carnivore diet, it's just absolutely amazing. And all of that is just to talk about the weight loss. It isn't to say anything about what about people with digestive problems? What about people with brain problems that have brain fog, like you mentioned? What about all the people that are losing muscle mass? What about the people with skin problems like rosacea and eczema and all these terrible things that carnivore just like magically is curing for so many people? It's incredible. It's amazing. I just think we have a very specific diet that as humans we should be on. And once people get on that diet, not only do they lose weight, not only do they not feel hungry, but they start to fix all of the crazy health problems that they are dealing with in this way that, again, a very low amount of hunger and they can sustain it for a long time. It's really been so amazing and wonderful to help people with that over the years. It's really great.
So you help people also in dieting, in getting healthy. So what are your best tips for a long, healthy and happy life?
Great question. I think most people, if you made it the most simple that you possibly could, I think helping people understand that they should be eating a high amount of animal protein and animal fat. Even if they don't go carnivore, even if they keep carbs in the diet, understanding that meat, especially meat coming from ruminant animals like cows, is the healthiest food that you can possibly consume. And to make that the foundation and cornerstone of your diet, I think would do wonders for people. Again, whether people want to go more strict and they want to try carnivore, I think a lot of people should, but you really don't have to, especially if you are focusing on animal products, especially red meat or whatever animal products that somebody can eat, I think is the number one thing. The second thing I would say is I want people to be active and moving. Do things that you enjoy. Do things that you're able to do. Maybe they challenge you a little bit, but you can still feel successful doing it. You know, for somebody that's 500 pounds, maybe they're not going to run 10 miles every single day, but maybe like walking to the mailbox and back is fantastic. Maybe doing 2,000 steps a day is something they could do, but it pushes them, it challenges them. That's great. That's fantastic. So finding ways to be really active. I think if you do those two things and not really stress out about the specifics of it, but just kind of find ways to eat more animal proteins and move in whatever ways that people enjoy, I think can work wonders for most people.
Thank you so much that you shared all your knowledge with us. I'm sure there are a lot of people out there who appreciate it as I do. Casey, I think there might be some people who would like to get in touch with you. Where can those people find you? I will link you in the show notes.
Yeah, of course. This has been such a pleasure to chat with you. And I hope people do come away with this feeling hopeful and feeling like they are in charge of their health and they can take steps in the right direction. So the easiest place to find me and our company and my wife is our website, which is myboundlessbody.com. One of the first things that you will see on our website is a button that says book now. And you, wherever you are in the world, can always book a complimentary 30-minute session with us so that we can chat. We can get to know each other. Hopefully we can answer some of your questions. We're not out to try to sell people tons of things that they don't need. We want to really help people. And so oftentimes just a simple 30-minute chat could be enough for somebody to just answer some questions and, get some good information and be pointed in the right direction. So we have that also on the webpage. You can also see where our podcast is. We're on all the major different podcast platforms, and that is called Boundless Body Radio. And we do releases every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. And we'll continue doing that for the foreseeable. So those are the best places where people can find us. You can also find our social media accounts on the website. So you can just go there to find all of that.
Thank you so much. Have a nice day.
Thank you so much.
Ciao,
Thank
Casey.
you so much. Have a great night. Bye-bye.
You.
So thank you so very much for listening to this bonus episode of Boundless Body Radio with 2 recent interview appearances that I've given. We hope you enjoyed this. As always, please, if you haven't already, go to Apple Podcasts, give us a follow, and also leave us a rating and review. It's the best way to get this message out to more people. We're just so grateful for you, the listener, for listening and supporting us. We really appreciate it. We love doing this content and sharing this message with everybody across the world. So thank you so very much for listening to this episode of Boundless Body Radio.